Well, Alex, we've known each other, wow, 6, 7 years at least.
Yeah.
And obviously in the crazy days of ICOs, and we were never keen on that, were we? We were all more interested in the technology and how it's going to be used in the real world. But just tell me a little bit about Two Tokens, how it started, and you managed to get some EU funding. You're doing work with the Dutch Central Bank. You're in all sorts of sandboxes. But what was your sort of vision behind Two Tokens when you first set it up 5 years ago?
Well, the vision was that we wanted to use the ICO mechanism for real businesses, right? So the Port of Rotterdam and the startup accelerator of the Technical University of Delft said, find a way to fund the companies. And I said, yeah, let's use the ICO mechanism. And in 2018, that was way too early for everybody. But we were always interested in applying what we saw in the crypto world to real businesses adoption without the crypto stuff.
Hype.
Yeah.
So the ICO mechanism, so initial coin offerings, ICOs,
Yes.
they were a mechanism, a way to raise capital, because whether you're here in Holland, whether you're in London, Paris, New York, they all suffer from the same problem. It's very difficult for small, medium-sized businesses to actually raise capital.
So I've been an entrepreneur all my life. I did many rounds of funding, venture capital, angel families, did all that, been there, done that. And in Europe, it's extremely difficult. And once you have the VC and the funds on board, then it's also very difficult for real startups to become scale-ups and to grow on from there. And so the whole concept of crowdfunding through ICOs, thereby democratizing fundraising, was very appealing to me. And that's why we started this whole initiative. And initially, it was, we had to create a roadmap of what companies need to do if they wish to use token technology for their funding.
Okay, so it's using tokenization on top of crowdfunding, so encouraging lots and lots of smaller investors. So it's using tokenization, a digital mechanism on top of crowdfunding to get lots of people to be involved in financing businesses. But give me some examples of the businesses that Two Tokens has been involved in, because you've had quite a success story.
Well, I wouldn't necessarily call it a success story per se when it comes to adoption, right? So because ever since 2000, well, you and I know that the wild, wild west of crypto days, there was a lot of funding, and we don't know where that money went. There was no governance. The consumer was not, the retail investor was not protected, and there was a lot of scams, right? So we didn't want that, right? So what we did see ever since is that we started helping companies creating their fundraising with tokens. And what does that mean? Do you go for risk capital? Do you go for a loan? Those types of. It's not any different than regular fundraising. But once the tokenization comes in, it becomes a different ballgame, because you have to start to think about your business model, value engineering. You could use that token for loyalty. There's all types of things that are involved with tokenization, and that's why we started the roadmap, and that's why that turned out to become the Two Tokens Foundation, because it's never one token. There's always two tokens.
There's always two tokens.
Yes.
Okay, but you've had some success helping the Port of Rotterdam with bills of lading. You've helped with.
Yes. So if you refer to if you refer to all the use cases.
Yes.
So we took a very pragmatic approach. We didn't want to be an academic think tank. So in the last 5 years, we've had over 12 working groups that were all modeled on a real business, that were led by a real business that had a real need. And so our very first use case indeed was with the Port of Rotterdam, creating electronic bills of lading and tokenizing those. Yes, absolutely.
And that was working with, was it Doc Labs? You were doing some work with that?
Yeah, Block Lab back in the day. Nowadays it's called Doc Lab, and they were in the lead. We had CMS as the lawyer. We had ABN AMRO Bank involved, several startups. Because if you do an ideation project like this, you need to open up with the ecosystem and see all the angles. It's an ecosystem play.
Okay, so you've done bills of lading. I know you've done gold. You've done sort of digitalization of share certificates. You've done
Energy.
energy being
Yeah.
quite important. You're now involved in a couple of sandboxes with the regulator.
Yes.
But just tell me very succinctly, what's the vision over the next 2 to 3 years? Because you've got 2 entities now, 2 tokens is effectively created.
Yeah, so the first 5 years, if you will, if you look at what the Gartner Quadrant says about adoption of tokenization, you see that tokenization for the next 2 to 3 years is going to, we will see massive adoption. And there's all these industries are going to be affected. So with the foundation, we basically focused on 2 industries. And the one industry, of course, was finance and banking, hence the involvement of the banks and the lawyers and what have you, and the investors. And the other industry was energy. What we see now is that besides the public projects that we do and the white papers that we publish, we see real companies coming to us for adoption. They say, can you help us raise money with a token? Can you help us create a loyalty token? How can we tokenize our asset, real world assets? And that's what we see is happening today. So those are the early days of adoption of tokenization. Some of it has to do with what happened with markets and crypto assets regulation, MiCAR. I think some political movements in the world are also helping. So and so for the next 5 years, I foresee that many companies are going to need help in their token strategy, if you will.
Okay, so this is I say very much stress. This is using the technology of blockchain distributed ledger, using that digital ability to transact 24/7, real time, but on a distributed basis. So if you look at our current financial ecosystem, we're very reliant on a handful of entities, whether it be clearinghouse or someone like Swift, or in America DTCC, over here Euroclear. There's just these literally pillars, but what we now seem to be evolving is to have a more decentralized approach at a regulatory level, so we're not so reliant on, if you like, one particular area, one particular set of servers. So tokenization, with its very decentralized nature, seems to be fitting into that accord well.
I have, in the very beginning, all those masterclasses you and I did, all over the world. Yes, decentralization was like a holy grail, right? We have to be decentralized. If not, then it's not real blockchain. And so over the years, we changed our narrative. First off, we like to avoid the word blockchain, crypto, and all the techno talk. Yep. We like to focus on what the end user eventually gets, right? Which also means that decentralization, while it is important to the real techies out there, and it's not important for the average end user. Mm-hmm. Because if you look at it, how many of these decentralized, so-called decentralized projects are really truly decentralized anymore, right? Mm-hmm. So you might argue they're not at all, but still they're working, and they're using decentralized technology in some way or another. So yes, it's important that decentralization take place, but for the adoption early on, I think it's more important that we get people to use it in a safe way, that in the full knowledge that it's fully regulated, and that they are protected, and that deregulation, the regulation that is coming with crypto assets and the tokenization of real world assets.
Okay.
It's great, but the decentralization part of it, that's not something that we sell on.
Okay, so can I turn to 2 tokens and the masterclasses? So could you explain to the listeners a little bit about the masterclasses, how they operate, what's involved, and how can they get involved as individuals or as potential sponsors with their own company?
So in the the last 3 years, we did the masterclasses. And for those of you who don't know what that means, but a masterclass is given by a master, and then it's always...
Or a mistress.
Or a mistress, yes, yeah. And there are 5 sessions of 5 hours, and the people in the class also get to know one another. This will continue. We're going to do the 6th series next year, and one is on technology, one is on law and regulation, one is on finance. So tokenization as such and digitalization is not just creating the token. Token is just a means to an end. So we will continue that. But very important is that we show what's actually being done already. That's what you do. That's what we do here today.
Yeah.
Show real companies that are using tokenization and how they become more competitive and have more of an edge because of it. Yeah. This we will continue the next 5 years. And because a lot of people can't afford to fly to Amsterdam, we're doing a lot of this online as well in a hybrid form. Mm-hmm. And so if you want to be involved, we'd very much like to showcase your company if you're successful. And for a lot of people who are out there who want to upskill and get to a next level, whether you're a lawyer or a solicitor, or whether you're a banker, financier, or a techie, or an entrepreneur, and you'd like to really truly understand what tokenization means for your company, you should definitely join the masterclass. And we do that with the Erasmus University, and so you get a real certificate from the university as well.
Okay, so just to sort of summarize that, what Two Tokens do with the masterclasses is have a series of, if you like, sessions. They're not quite lectures, but they're workshops explaining the actual mechanics of tokenization, how it works, how it can work for your business. And then at the end of those 5 sessions, we then bring in a series of companies based in Europe, based in Asia, based in America, and they give us and share us their experiences of how and where and why they've used tokenization and how it can benefit. And from that, practical examples, then the students can get some real insight. So it's about theory, but also how is that implemented? And that really encapsulates what the masterclasses are all about. And that's helped us sort of then foment other companies that said, well, can you help us with this? Can you show us how that works? And that's really going the adoption of this whole tokenization process.
Absolutely.
Brilliant. Well, thank you, Alex, and thank you for listening. And if you'd like more details, then just please go to Two Tokens. You can find them on the web, or Alex Bausch, who's the chairman, on LinkedIn, or myself, Jonny Fry. Thank you for joining us.
That was it for today's podcast. Thank you for listening in, and please subscribe so you don't miss out on our upcoming episodes. If you want to get in touch with us, you can find our contact details at www.twotokens.org.